I welcome you all in this webinar. Now, as the situation seems to be critical again, let's pray for the best. The idea of webinar have emerged in this lockdown in substitute of seminar, and it's a blessing to us for knowledge sharing. Today we have with us Dr. Rahul Chatterjee, Assistant Professor, University of Wisconsin Medicine. Very thankful. We are very thankful to him that he have managed some of his precious time to share his thoughts on the topic. We are also thankful to Principal Madam, Dr. Nistarini Dev, and President of Governing Body Nistarini College, Dr. Subal Chandra De, sir, for being with us despite having their tight schedule and immense pressure of work. I will now request our Principal, Dr. Nistarini Dev, Madam, for addressing the inaugural speech and say something about today's webinar.
Thank you, Mrina. Today's webinar, I know, has been organized in a very trying circumstance because the COVID wave is again upon us, and we have to deal with this new wave again for another time. But the computer science department has still decided to organize a webinar, and naturally a seminar is out of the question because personal interaction is absolutely out of the question now. However, because this is a webinar, we have with us an international scholar, Dr. Rahul Chatterjee, and we are thankful to him, product of Purulia, in fact, and we are very thankful to him for being with us today. And because this is a webinar, we have been able to get his company today with us in this session. Today's session is on technology abuse and domestic violence, a very interesting topic because this is a very pertinent topic nowadays, technology abuse. And I am eager to hear Dr. Rahul Chatterjee speaking on this today in this webinar. And in fact, technology abuse is spreading everywhere. This is not just an Indian phenomenon. This is a global phenomenon. And just as we are getting the benefits of technology, we also have to understand how to use it properly. And so I am really eager to hear Dr. Rahul Chatterjee speaking on this topic today. So over to the computer science department again, and I do hope that this session is going to be immensely interesting to all the participants, all the students who have assembled here today. Thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Subal Chandra De, for coming here today. In spite of his busy schedule, I know how busy he is, and he is with us all the time in all the seminars, in all the webinars that we conduct in the college. And so I'm really thankful that he has been able to join us today. Thank you, Dr. Subal Chandra De, for being with us. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Computer Science Department, for organizing this webinar.
Thank you very much, Madam. Now, I would like to request our President of Governing Body, Nistarini College, also the Controller of Examination, Sidhu Kanu Birsa University, Dr. Subal Chandra De, sir, to address the inaugural speech and say something about the webinar today.
Good evening, everybody. Respected Principal Madam, eminent speaker of the day, Dr. Rahul Chatterjee, international scholar, as Principal Madam told, I agree on that. And respected faculties of the college and faculties from outside, my dear students, I am really thankful to the Department of Computer Science for organizing such a topic. And the topic is very interesting, to me at least. It is technology abuse and domestic violence. Now, domestic abuse is a pattern of coercive, controlling behavior that is a pervasive, life-threatening crime affecting people in all our communities, irrespective of gender, age, sex, race, ethnicity, religion, social standing, and immigration status. It takes many forms. It may be physical, maybe emotional, maybe economic, and maybe some sexual mode also. It is one person in a relationship having power and control over the other person. It is a traditional social crime and ever existent too. Now, in the 21st century, this crime has taken a new shape based on advanced technology. It is the technology hazards, let us say. Technology nowadays become a tool that abusers use to facilitate harassment, control, and abuse. In the context of domestic violence and sexual assault, online harassment and crimes are part of a larger system of abuse. The abuser in most of the cases is either partner or ex-partner. And due to the closeness of the relationship, he or she knows all personal details, including bank account number, email address, password, etc. The abuser wants power and control over the victim and to force into doing what the perpetrator wants. Through technology, perpetrator monitor survivors' activities, control what the victim can or can't do, and harass regularly and in a variety of ways. Even sometimes he or she donates the devices and buy the data plans in order to get the detailed call log of the victim. Sometimes, with the help of technology to spy, abuser used to map the whereabouts of the victim also. As per the UK-based organization which assists domestic violence survivor in 2019, as it stated, around 95% of its cases involve some form of technology abuse, ranging from tracking a partner location by Google Maps to downloading stalkware and spyware apps on phones. In the same year, US-based National Network to End Domestic Violence found that 71% of domestic abusers monitor survivors' device activities. In Indian survey, what we found that victims aged between 18 to 32 were predominantly female. In India, the common features are sending filthy SMS, intimate photos and video blackmail, mobile phone tracking, email account control, etc. and etc. And the view of World Health Organization, also as it is related to mental health, also in conformity with the Indian picture, it states that women are disproportionately the victims of violence worldwide. And United Nations also agree on that. As per their record, 95% violence aimed at women, and it comes from their partners or ex-partners. Now, technology, as it is, we call it technology hazards. I think that the technology, this kind of advanced technology, can also use to make the electronic surveillance. This is one aspect we have to think about, and the other form is we can enforce laws, some laws worldwide to check this social crime. So I think this kind of problem will be much more in the coming days. And as our college is a women college, I think this kind of organized the seminar or webinar on this particular topic will definitely aware our girl students to take the steps, or at least to take some mental thought regarding tackling this kind of social crime in future. So finally, I wish the grand success of this webinar, and once again I would like to thank to the department and the college as well. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much to you. And now I would like to request now Honorable Chairman of IQAC Nistarini College, Professor Nandadulal Saningre sir, to deliver some speech on today's webinar.
Good evening, everybody. All of you have already learned that in this chilled winter evening, we have joined with us in this virtual platform on the occasion of an international webinar entitled Technology Abuse and Domestic Violence, organized by the Department of Computer Science, Nistarini College, Purulia. And on behalf of myself and Internal Quality Assurance Cell, I convey my heartfelt regards and gratitude along with the best wishes to all of you who have joined with us with this virtual platform. In this webinar, we have with us our Honorable Principal of Nistarini College, Dr. Indrani Dev. We have with us our President of the Governing Body as well as Controller of Examination, Dr. Subal Chandra De, and we have with us none other than the very brilliant, dynamic scientist and professors, Dr. Rahul Chatterjee from abroad. Along with, we have with us the different faculty members of our college, faculties of Computer Science and Coordinator, Dr. Rajiv Basu, and students, our dear students, other persons, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of myself, I welcome you all. All of you know that today's topic is technology abuse and domestic violence. So I think I'm not the right person to say anything about this. And we have with us Dr. Chatterjee, who will the right person who can speak much more radiating words. And I think we'll be enlightened much after having the pleasure of the listening from Dr. Chatterjee. All of you know, gone at the age of our childhood when we have heard about the magic lamp of Aladdin. আমরা সবাই আলাউদ্দিন আশ্চর্য প্রদীপের গল্প জানি, and that was a supernatural magic. And now that supernatural magic has turned into the magic of reality by the aid of computer jargon. All of you know that the computer science, computer, especially internet, international network, which is garnished with Google, Facebook, YouTube, different other social networking, has made the entire world into a small village. So what happening in America, we are now in every time being in touch with that information. And not only America, the entire world has come into our, the technological devices. We know that science is a good servant, but bad master. So computer is a good servant if we can properly use. And we have learned that amidst the COVID-19 pandemic since 2020 till 2021, after the passage of different kind of variants like Alpha, Beta, Delta, Omicron, IU, etc., till due to computer technology development, the science, technology, and the social activities are being still in progress. And we believe that no virus, nothing else can stop the progress of the human civilization. And very shortly, it will come to an end. But if we think about the bad master of the computer, then we'll find that there are different kind of issues are now being flooded in the social domains, especially if we think about cyberbullying, we can think about social exclusion, we can think about tagging without permission, flaming, sex reposting, impersonalization and identity theft, along with fraud, online crackers, cyber pirates, etc. All these are the byproducts of computer misuses. And I think women, the half of the society, they become the soft target due to indiscriminate use of this technological, we can say it's a, the giant, or we can say it's a, the technological development. So it is the right time, especially we are in the domain of the girls' college, and the girls are the soft victims, and they become victims due to different kind of the social aspects. Particularly, the domestic violence has become very much prominent with the help of these devices misuses. I think that Dr. Chatterjee will enlighten us how this kind of domestic violence by the misuse of the computer jargon can be minimized. And I think our students will highly be enlightened, having the pleasure of the radiance from Dr. Chatterjee, listening from them. With these few words, on behalf of Internal Quality Assurance Cell and myself, I welcome you all, and I convey my heartfelt regards and gratitude to all of you who have joined with us in this virtual domain in this chilled winter evening. Over to Ujjwal.
Thank you, sir. I would like to request now our coordinator of Department of Computer Science, Nistarini College, Dr. Rajiv Basu, to few some words about the webinar.
Good evening, Honorable President, sir, respected Principal Ma'am. Being the coordinator of the Department of Computer Science, I convey my heartfelt thanks and gratitude. I convey my gratitude to Dr. Rahul Chatterjee, eminent scholar, for giving time from his busy schedule. I thank my younger colleagues of Department of Computer Science for taking initiative to organize an international webinar on the topic technology abuse and domestic violence, which is very much time-worthy. Nowadays, both by grace of science and maybe little by the dilution of our emotions, our thoughts, which are already preoccupied by the process, how to keep up to date with science and techie minds, and our entity being in a society. Does that make someone bad? That's a debatable question. Science or technology makes our life super comfortable than our thought. The technology has brought the world to our fingertips. So-called click we use daily on a random basis makes our life techy, comfy, and so-called sorted. All that we need a smartphone and internet connection to dive into our desires, provided if we have money. During this pandemic, for nearly 2 years, every person from kid to old, it was unimaginable without a phone and internet. Yet a growing concern among the parents that my child is always locked with the phone, and especially concern of every mother. What does he or she finds in phone every time of the day? Now that is also debatable. During this subacute crisis in the world that we are facing for last 2 years, we cannot imagine communication and talking without the technology. It leaves no stone unturned, from setting virtual mode of classrooms, virtual workshops, online mode of exams, online meeting, and so on. We have no alternative during this acute phase. All these glorious points of for ever powering technology. But this power of technology have eaten up our intellectual thought process largely. We are familiar with the phrases sustainable use, optimal and judicious use of our natural resources to save for the upcoming generations. But when you get a thing in an overflowing manner and it is endless, you forget to turn off that switch. You tend to go on and on with that. And undoubtedly, the so-called addiction have set in. These have significantly led to the decrease in concentration, communication skills, and largely eaten up the most of our thinking skills. Studies have shown that regardless of children or adults, they spend less time with hardbound books. They spend less time with finding a solution, with exploring the dictionary, or many more. Now, online transactions are being common. Government have encouraged the same, be cashless. To be honest, we all are now remain so cashless, both literally and ironically. Now we are in the era of QR code, and all cybercrime is escalating in an unimaginable manner. We are all deep down at our heart and worried after an online transaction about being a victim of the same. All times we are frightened that we are stalked, getting loot of our heavy bank balances, keeping aside the huge monetary problem. Another problem which flashes every now and then is the word fake. Creating fake profiles at social networking sites to loot you, to abuse you, to taking away your mental peace is not uncommon. We are now used to such kind of news. This is growing concern. Teenagers and adolescents are at verge of this infection of this technology. As said, they now cannot live without phones. And when they dive in, they are trapped by the cobwebs of cybercrime. Everything has pros and cons. With increase in ease of using technology, one should also be very sensitive about these dark corners. This should come as a danger sign when things are talked about. These are red flags. The underdeveloped souls of adolescents cannot get this essence, and here lies our duty. As protective parent, please make them understand the dark sides, because overparenting will make them reluctant to do the same. And being reluctant one, he or she lands up in distress, in depression. And we all know how mental health is ignored as anything, provocating for violences which are known as, which popularly now called domestic violences. Regarding all these issues, we are now not the right person, but now enlightened by our distinguished scholar from Purulia. I come to know now a speaker, Dr. Rahul Chatterjee, regarding the technical use and its protective measure. Thank you to all, and over to Mrinal.
Thank you, sir. Coming to the technical session, today's topic is technology abuse and domestic violence. The topic may seem quite offbeat today, but as you know, that domestic violence is such a problem that is with us from the very beginning of modernization of civilization. But the unfortunate thing is that many of us don't want to acknowledge that in modern era also. And in the other hand, the technology is growing. The advancement of technology is growing in exponential manner. Everything is today is smart, from smartphone to smart TV to smart home. Now let's hear it from our guest, Dr. Rahul Chatterjee, how these two things can be attached through one thread. Over to you, sir.
Acha. All right. Now you can see my screen. Thank you for the introduction. I don't feel like I need to give more motivation, because like everyone has given amazing motivation behind this talk. আমি বাংলা আর ইংরেজি মিশিয়ে বলার চেষ্টা করব, হিন্দি বলার চেষ্টা করব না, আমার হিন্দির অবস্থা খুব বাজে। But this is not a very core technical talk, but I find this talk is very important to talk about, especially in India. And I'll talk about some of my research and some other progress that has happened in this area, as well as I would love to take some, open floor for some discussion around it. Now, some ground rule before we start. I can't see the chat, so someone, I'll probably appoint Mrinal. You can, if you have questions, you can either raise hand. I don't know if you can raise hand in Hangout, or you can post your question on the chat. And Mrinal, you can interrupt me and ask. Okay,
no problem. There is a question and answer session at the last. We can have the questions at the very end of the session.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you can ask at the end, but যদি এক্ষুনি জিজ্ঞেস করতে হয়, if you are not sure or if you did not understand something, please feel free to interrupt me. I think it's better to be dialogue than a monologue.
Okay.
So, okay. But, okay. All right. Of course, this research would have not been possible without the collaboration from my lovely collaborators. I'm not going to spell out everyone's name, but you can see it on the slides. The first thing first, I want to clarify some definition. Now, I use domestic violence in the title of the talk that I shared, and the reason being it's a more popular word that we use. But domestic violence is a little bit broader than what I will be talking about in this talk. I'll be talking about something called intimate partner violence. Intimate partner violence means physical, psychological, or sexual violence by an intimate partner, like boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, husband, wife. Now, just to differentiate from domestic violence is any type of violence where two people living in the same house. So this also includes violence against children, violence against older parents, or any other. It doesn't have an intimate partner relationship. Although the things that I'll be talking about can carry over to domestic violence, but just to not dilute the talk, I'll be specifically focusing on intimate partner violence. Okay. Another thing to remember, intimate partner does not have to live in the same house. It can be boyfriend, girlfriend living separately, but they can also be subject to this problem. I'll use the word IPV more often as an acronym for intimate partner violence. So first thing first. Now, IPV is a serious problem across the globe. We have statistics from all over the world, as I think many of the top speakers before me has pointed out. I'll be giving some basic statistics. This is in the US, based on a study in 2015. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 10 men actually experienced some form of IPV during their lifetime. And this is a staggeringly high number, given, I mean, we assume US is like, first world country with and the society is supposed to be educated, but this problem exists there. And when we talk about IPV, it's majority we think about physical violence, but increasingly there are a lot more technology-mediated violence are happening. So this seems to be happening in the US, and as pointed out, in India also this domestic violence or IPV is a very serious problem. Some statistics says 1 in 3 women in India subject to domestic violence. Excuse me. And recently, COVID-19 did not make it better. It made it worse, especially because of stay-at-home order. Domestic violence cases has gone up. Digital use of digital technologies made it much worse. And in some data says like 1 in 3 women actually experience some form of harassment, receive inappropriate calls, or digital violence against them. And one of the biggest problem in India is very few, less than 2% cases are actually reported. So that's the basic backdrop behind, why it's a serious problem. It's affecting a large fraction of people in our society, and that's why we should talk about it. Now, a large fraction of IPV includes physical and psychological or sexual violence, but also a sizable fraction depends on technology abuse. So technology abuse includes something like sending harassing text messages or emails and bombarding someone with hundreds of thousands of messages in a day. Stalking online. We are all using social media networks all the time, and stalking is a serious problem. Now, stalking is not just looking up someone's profile on the media. Stalking means making sure you show your presence to the victim. So abusers would try to show their presence to the victim by learning through the social media or something. For example, just submitting a random post on some completely irrelevant location, but that post will be visible to the victim eventually. One very interesting example could be someone wrote, "Oh, I really liked your red churidar the other day you wore," and that in normal post it doesn't look that threatening, and that's why Facebook or Twitter, they will not realize the veracity of the extent of the problem, but it is a psychologically stressing for that particular person. Another technology related problem that often arises in IPv is account compromise. And this is actually one of the reasons I started working on this area, because account compromise seems to be passwords and two factors and all those technological advancement must have solved account compromise problems, but it did not in IPv, because in the IPv, the abuser or the attacker actually is very close to the victim. So they know a lot of information about the victim. For example, they probably know the reset phone number, or password reset email address, or the password reset questions. And in some cases, they might know the password, because victims sometimes shared the password with the abuser, or maybe abuser forced the victim to share the password. So, of course, the final and the most imminent threat is spying using mobile phones and technology. Because we are so much reliant on technology, and it is good in some sense, the technological advancement, as Nando Kaku was saying, that like technological advancement has helped us staying online during COVID. So it is an important help. It can also help domestic violence IPv victims, but it can also be used against them. And that will be one of the primary area that I'll be talking about today. So another acronym, sorry. Another acronym that I'll be using is called Intimate Partner Surveillance, or IPS. So it's basically surveilling on an intimate partner using technology. One thing to note, we can probably be able to solve we'll be talking about the intimate partner surveillance, account compromise, stalking, etc. One of the biggest challenge that I don't know how to solve, and actually, frankly speaking, we build technology in such a way that it is very hard to solve, is sending hundreds of thousands of messages, or harassing using this kind of bombarding with messages. And I'll be happy to discuss about it separately, why it's so difficult. All right. Now, why the account compromise that I was talking about, why it's so prevalent and so difficult to protect? In IPv, as I was just saying, that the abuser or the attacker has often physical access to the device. They can actually either, they have physical access, they know the password or PIN, or they might have the fingerprint already set up, because they were domestic intimate partners at some point of time. Or maybe they are intimate partners, and that's why the partner felt safe to share those things, or were coerced to share those things. And in some cases, they bought the device, and this often happens because of financial dependence on the abuser. So abuser will buy the phone for the victim. And once abuser have this kind of capabilities, they can install spyware, any type of spyware or applications to monitor the device. And on the right, there is this app called FlexiSpy. It got actually taken down after our study. FlexiSpy, or many this type of spyware apps, only require one-time access to the device, and that is sufficient to install the spyware apps. And then I'll talk about their capabilities in a bit. So, IPv threat model. This is what we call IPv threat model. Means it's a computer science, especially computer security lingo. A threat model basically means what are the capabilities of the attacker, in this case, the abuser. So the attacker has physical access to the device. That's one of the big capabilities they have. They sometimes know or compel disclosure of passwords and PIN. And sometimes they own the device or own the phone plan. And so that's the capabilities with an attacker. And just a sideline, little bit of sidetrack. This kind of capability is never considered in any kind of computer security research, that normal average computer security. In computer security research, you always assume the attacker is somewhere far, sitting in some other country, or definitely do not know the person closely. And that's why this threat model was very intriguing and very difficult to defend against. All right. Now, IPS, or basically spying seems to be bad, but why are we so worried while majority of the women experience physical violence in India, or like majority of the concern is around physical violence or at most psychological violence? But I argue IPS, like spying on an intimate partner, is a violence in itself. It causes psychological harm. It helps impart power on the victim. Therefore, it's kind of like facilitate violence. And in some cases, it can actually it can lead to some physical violence. There is this one of the story from our study, and case manager. Case managers are basically the persons who help domestic violence victims or IPV victims. So I'll be using this domestic violence and IPV interchangeably, but I hope you understand that I specifically mean intimate partner violence. So IPV victims, case managers try to help them and try to basically get them connected with lawyer, police, getting a new job, new house, etc., childcare, so on, especially in India, in the US, I'm sorry. So one of the case managers recalls one of the incident where the abuser actually kicked in the front door of that case manager's house where she was helping the victim for some task. And the way abuser found that location is through a app installed on the victim's phone. And the whole thing became physical, and they had to call police, and this situation got violent. So this is like one of the many incidents where digital spying or digital violence can lead to physical violence. Now, some computer science students are here, so I have to clarify this. What are the spyware or these apps that we are talking about? They're different than traditional spyware that we are thinking of. So traditional spyware, we think about some adware, like you might have seen this, some browser adware will hijack the browser. It's a malware that if you install accidentally, it will change the search engine, and it will basically spy on every search that you make, so that they can sell the data and so on. These are also, we are not talking about nation state spyware. Nation state spyware like Flame, or there are like tons of this, like FBI and NSO group, like in Israel, they create this nation state spyware, which are used by governments to spy on people, or companies to spy on their clients. So we're not talking about that kind of spyware. We are focused on spyware tools that can be used in a peer-to-peer basis. What I mean by that is, in one average citizen can install a tool on another average citizen's phone or a laptop, and through that tool, they can exfiltrate the information. Okay. All right. Now, I was just last night, I was searching about is there any cases for domestic use of technology in India? And this news article came up. Some techie in Pune got booked for spying on his I think girlfriend or wife, estranged wife. And he installed some spyware in her cell phone and was tracking all information. I also remember this movie, Ugly. I don't know if you have seen this movie. It's a very interesting movie. It's a very sad movie as well. That movie, and there was one line that basically where the police officer was actually tracking all the call logs and actually calls of his wife, because he suspects his wife is probably cheating on him. And that led to something else. But this is one of the use of spying on intimate partner, or example of spying on intimate partner on Bollywood. I'm pretty sure there are probably other movies, other examples you can find. This only shows that this happens in India as well, and it happens pretty frequently. We just don't have statistics to track them. then another thing came up. I was just searching for spying on cheating spouse, and India Mart has basically this web page came up, and this shows how prevalent this system can be. India Mart, I thought is like a genuine website which sells, which connects buyers with sellers, and there people are advertising about spy phone. Another interesting thing, note in the description, nowhere they talk about on spouse, but they talked about cheating spies on the title only. And you'll find the similar thing in many cases where the websites will talk about cheating spouse or spying on intimate partner exclusively on images, which is very hard to track, or on some kind of like a white text, or on this title, which is often not monitored by the websites if they are trying to track down or crack down on this kind of malicious activity. All right. Yeah, India Mart has like tons of this kind of, it was very shocking to see there are so many tools are being built and sold to people who are trying to spy on their spouse. So, all right. Now, given those initial introduction, I would like to give some kind of like a roadmap. What are we going to talk about in today's session? We will talk about, of course, different kind of spyware tools that are available to abusers. So how they find them, how they abuse them. Are the developers of these tools aware that their tools are being used for spying? Can anti-spyware tools be useful? Can they help? Are there spyware available in non-English languages, like in Bengali or Hindi? And also, basically, like, will the search engines like technology is helping the abusers? Will technology also help the victims? And will or will not? Okay. Is there any question so far?
No, I think there is no question till now.
Okay. All right. So the first question is, how do people find these spy apps? How difficult? Do they have to talk to Israelis, like those spyware manufacturers like NSO groups, which is, it costs like $50,000 to get? No, I mean, you don't have to do much. Google is a pretty good search engine to find spywares as well, which is very unfortunate. But if you just search something like how to spy on my husband, there will be tons of, first of all, there will be millions of hits. And then there will be like websites like blog posts, which will talk about different spyware apps, just like people compare phones or like laptops. There will be blog posts that compare different spy apps, which one will be better suitable to spy on your husband or a wife. There are video guides that basically tells about how to install them. There are ad funnels. Ad funnels are basically websites that will talk about spying on intimate partner and then exclusively redirect to some spyware tools. And there are spy app websites as well. This basically shows the web is infested with this kind of tools, and that there is a huge ecosystem or an economic incentive for the developers, ad creators, search engines. They are as if they're collectively working towards helping the abusers find spyware tools to spy on intimate partner. And first of all, that is very depressing and unfortunate. But this also means that we need to understand how bad current situation is, because nobody has looked into it before. So we did the first study to try to find out where are we stand as a society and the web in terms of this spying on intimate partner. So natural question, how do you do the studies? What we did, we basically, we saw that, we can just Google and then emulate a potential abuser to find out what are the different tools an abuser might find. The only thing we need is basically come up with different queries for Google. The different queries that a potential abuser might think about. Okay. Well, there also Google is pretty helpful. If you start typing something, Google will autofill the query, and it will also give some kind of suggestions on what to search. So that helps us do our measurement or understanding of the web. So we created basically a bunch of seed queries. And then from the seed queries, we'll use Google to get the suggestions and then search with those queries again and keep going. We call it snowball searching. If you, it's a very bad analogy for India, but snowballs, you start with a small ball. And then if you roll it on the snow, it will basically collect a bunch of snow and it keep growing bigger and bigger. So that's why it's called snowball searching. You start with a small set of seed queries and you then roll it on Google, and Google will give you suggestions and it use the suggestion to refine the search. Using this search, basic search on Google, it found out a bunch of, about a couple of dozen App Store spyware apps. Now, why App Store? Because these spyware apps are not available on typical Android application stores like Play Store or Amazon App Store or I know there are like Samsung Galaxy Store and so on. So if you assume those are official application store for Android, these apps are not available. Probably because they violate a bunch of their policies, because they are these apps are like outright spying app, and I'll talk about their capabilities in a bit. What was shocking was that we also found a bunch of links to official Play stores, like specifically Google Play, when we were searching on Google. So among like the capabilities of this App Store spyware apps basically are like outrageous. I mean, it can spy one of these examples like Spicy or FlexiSpy or MSpy. All of these tools can basically track all SMS, call logs, chats, DPS. Even like sometimes they have a real time and historical activity of the location. So the abuser do not have to like look at the phone all the time. They can get the historical location data. They claim that they can work without rooting or jailbreaking of the phone, and they can remotely record audio or video from the phone. I mean, when we first time saw these capabilities, we did not believe. So we basically installed a bunch of apps. We bought a bunch of apps and then installed them and then tested them. And some of them actually work and they have all these capabilities. And they can be easily found on Google. They cost somewhere between like $10 to $99 some cases, but it's not exorbitant. They also, this is like, they needs very like 5 minutes of time to install. So remember our abuser threat, IPv threat model, where the abuser have physical access to the device. They can have like, an abuser can easily get 5 minutes access to the victim's device for some excuse. It does not, once installed and configured, there will be no app icon on the device. There will be no notifications while it's actually stealing the data from the device. And on the abuser side, they have really slick UI. We were very impressed with the kind of UI they provide. It basically, as you can see, this is a demo UI where they shows like all the calls made, all messages sent, the locations, Facebook chats, and so on and so forth. So abuser get pretty good abuser experience with these App Store spyware apps. So it basically shows how much money is actually invested and how many developers are working on these tools to help abusers in some sense. But we also found a bunch of security vulnerabilities in these tools. And I'm not going to go into the details of those vulnerabilities. Basically, it allowed anyone to see anybody's pictures. So you don't, like, they have this authorization bug that allows any user which can basically look at the pictures collected from any mobile on their account. We reported the bug, of course, did not receive any response from this their developers. But yeah, so this basically means it's not only violating the privacy of the victim to the abuser, but also to everyone. And it's a huge problem to use this kind of tools against an intimate partner. Now, these were off-store applications. So clearly, I mean, there is no limit to how creepy they can be. There must be some limits on the apps available in the official application stores, right? That's the difference between off-store and on-store. Now, on-store, actually, we were shocked to find out in on-store means inside Play Store or Google Play, you can find lots of applications that can be used for spying. For example, there was one blog post on forum post we found where a potential abuser was looking for something to track the wife's phone location, I believe, and it should be hidden. And someone responds that, install Cerberus. Cerberus was an app available on Play Store. It's not available anymore, thankfully. And it is advertised as you can see, it says anti-theft. Anti-theft apps are basically used for, if your phone is stolen or lost, then anti-theft apps can help you find the phone, as well as apparently it can also catch the thief. And that's the reason, that's how they justify their capabilities. So Cerberus, once installed, will be completely invisible on the app drawer. So basically, like, there will be no app icon. And it can remotely record audio, video, and definitely it can record the location and all. Now, compare this with the spyware app we just talked before, Spizy. Cerberus has almost equal amount of capabilities, like a spyware, but they sell themselves or advertise themselves as an anti-theft app. And that is what we call dual use applications. Dual use means these applications are not advertised as a spyware. They have some legitimate use case, probably, but they have all the capabilities of a spyware and can be used as a spyware. And this dual use nature of applications are one of the most difficult, or one of the reasons why it's so difficult to deal with IPS or intimate partner surveillance. Because these apps has natural, genuine use case. They are normally not considered as spyware, but they are, and that's why they are present in Play Store and all. Easy, it seems to be genuine, and they can be installed easily on anyone's phone, but they can be used for spying. All right. Now, the question was then we need to understand how many dual use apps are available, what types of them. So we did a kind of a pipeline, what we say, where we looked at how many dual use apps are available in Play Store. So we used the similar snowball searching techniques, just this time on Play Store. So we had this small set of queries, how to spy on girlfriend, how to spy on husband, and or like apps to find location of husband, this kind of seed queries. Submit them to Play Store. Play Store will give you suggestions, which is called, and then use those suggestions to improve our queries, and then also download all the apps that came up on the search. So we found 18,525 apps. Not all of them are spyware, of course, because Play Store search is not that great, but many of them are. How do you find which one of them are probably relevant or could be used for spying? So we used a machine learning classifier. So we looked at the description of the app, the different kind of permissions the app uses, and their title, their short description, etc., and created a very basic machine learning classifier to figure it out which of these apps are definitely not relevant. This gives us reduce the number, but not much. Of course, because we are not using any kind of more fancy features like if you know Android, there is a thing called dynamic analysis. Dynamic analysis means you run the app and then you analyze what data it's collecting, where it's sending. We did not use that. We use very basic static analysis techniques. Static analysis means you basically break open the app, see its code, see what permissions it's using, what API it's calling, and use those information only. I can talk about why that is the case, why dynamic analysis we did not try separately. I mean, one of the reasons is because they have a legitimate case. Legitimate case means Google Map will have access to GPS and it will send to Google. That does not make it a dual use, but it can be used for spying if you turn on the location sharing to another party. So that's the difference, right? So we found we reduced the number from 18,000 to 5,000, but it's still pretty large, and there are still some apps that are definitely not relevant. So we went through some human level verification, bunch of students, including me. I was doing this during my PhD. So we looked at a bunch of these applications, looked at the description, and then filtered it out to something like 4,000 apps that we believe can be used for spying. And therefore, if those apps are installed on someone's device, they should be notified, especially if they are subject to some kind of intimate partner surveillance, or they believe they might be subject to intimate partner surveillance. This is on Android, on Play Store. We did the similar but a small scale study. So this study was done over over a month long crawling, and the whole pipeline was done over a month. But we did a small scale study for a couple of weeks on iTunes App Store, and we found 572. Now that number seems to be huge different, but also remember that iTunes App Store is, I think, 4 times smaller than Android. And they're very picky about which apps can get in an iTunes App Store. So overall, this is where we stand. There are about a couple of dozen spyware apps available on Google, but not on any official Play Store, official application stores, but they can be easily found through Google. And thousands of applications on official application stores, like Google Play or Samsung Galaxy Store or iTunes App Store that can be used for spying. These are all done in the US and in English. And it's an interesting question, what happens if you try some regional languages or other languages? Now, among those, we were interested to find out what type of applications are they. So we can roughly group them in 3 categories. There are apps for personal tracking, like anti-theft or Find My Phone type applications. There are automatic call recorders. Sometimes people install them so they can record your call and for future use. Or there are automated data syncing or SMS syncing apps that helps you. Your phone is not close to you. Install these applications, and from the laptop you can access them. Now, nobody prevents there is no mechanism to prevent an abuser from installing their applications on the victim's phone. That's the problem. So there are some mutual tracking applications where couples, parents and children, or friends actually, not parents, children, friends will install these applications on each other's device so that they know each other's location and stuff. This is called couple tracking apps, Find My Family apps, where family members can track each other. And then there are subordinate tracking apps like employer tracking employees' location, for example, like Swiggy want to ensure their employees are where they are so that they can give more logistical support. Or parental control apps. Parents wants to ensure that their kid is not, kids are safe with the device. So this kind of applications. This is a very rough grouping of applications that we found. It's not exhaustive. There are applications that does not fit in any of the categories but exist. But this basically shows why these dual use applications are built in the first case. And this is the way they justify their use case. And it also shows what kind of capabilities these applications can have. What is missing in all of those applications is any kind of prevention from being used against an intimate partner, adult intimate partner, without their consent. Okay. So what is missing? One of the things is missing notification. Many apps will not show any notifications while they send the data out. Second problem was Android allows suppressing notification. So you can pick an app and suppress notification from the app. And that basically means the app, even if the app wants to send a notification, Android will not show it. And the third thing is sometimes they have just way more capabilities than they need. For example, an anti-theft app, there is no reason for it to be completely hidden on the app drawer. I mean, their argument is like, oh, so that the attacker cannot actually uninstall the applications and all. But if an attacker who is smart enough to, like actual thief who is smart enough, they can find the applications from the app, like it from some other mechanisms as well. It does not help against a thief, but it definitely hurt against an intimate partner who is subject to IPS. So this is few of the design flaw that I think is enabling these apps to be used against IPS, intimate partner. Now, are developers aware that their apps can be or are being used for spying? Well, in some cases, yes. Some developers actually actively talk about or in the blog post that, oh, use this application to find out if your wife is cheating or your husband is cheating. Some of those are like egregious in their blog post, where there's a picture about a battered woman on their blog post. So yeah, some developers are just are horrible. They're probably criminal. Others are subtle. For example, there's MSpy. On their website, they only say that, oh, MSpy is useful for employer to track their employees. It is only or parents to track their children, make sure that children are safe and so on. But then we found a ton, like 100 of websites that talk about finding cheating spouse or catch, spy on wife or husband or boyfriend and girlfriend, and exclusively then redirect so that website has nothing about talking about why you should spy on intimate partner, and then have one button, use this tool to find it, and the tool will be MSpy. Now, this kind of suspicious redirect is what we call ad funnels, and it's very hard to believe that MSpy is completely unaware that their products are being sold to abusers who want to spy on their wife or husband. We also found lots of ads came up in Google, and this is why it's concerning, because if you know how Google ads work, developers has to bid on certain key terms about where their ad should show up. And that basically shows kind of an intent by the developer that they want their ads to show up when someone searches for, say, track cheating boyfriend. And we tried a bunch of different terms, and we strongly believe that they are definitely bidding on cheating boyfriend or cheating girlfriend kind of ad terms. Okay, so these paid ads. So the one problem is the developers are kind of complicit and showing the ad. Second problem is Google does not care that someone is betting on terms like spy on cheating boyfriend or spy on boyfriend. We also talked to some customer cares pretending as an abuser, like some hypothetical abuser, Jesse, like I want to use your app to track my husband. Will he know? And 9 companies out of, I think, 10 responded. 8 of them said like, no, you will not know, and completely turn a blind eye to the fact that their tools are being used for spying on an intimate partner. I want to stress one point, like spying on a child is, I'm not sure. I'm not gonna discuss anything where it's ethical, legal or not. But spying on an adult without their knowledge is definitely illegal and unethical. Sorry, it's definitely unethical, but illegal in some countries. So, but many of the web developers do not care. Only one applications that we found that actually admonished us against using their tool. They said like, no, don't use our tool, it's illegal. So developers condone IPS in some sense, condone in the sense they know that either they know that their tools are being used for IPS and turn a blind eye, or they kind of actively participate in IPS. Now the question is, won't anti-spyware tools help? So we basically tested with something about like 40 anti-spyware tools from Play Store. Some are popular on Play Store. Some are popular because good name like Norton, Avast, Kaspersky. And to our surprise, they are good at catching the App Store spyware app that kind of like people know that they're bad, but a large of the dual use apps are never caught. So anti-spyware tools do not help. So an IPv victim, if they're trying to protect themselves from this application, they have very little tool. And so the remaining last resort is basically raising awareness. Even if we have tools like this anti-spyware apps, some apps are supposed to be present in the Play Store, like your, say for example, SMS syncing app. Using SMS syncing app on your own phone has nothing, there is nothing wrong about it. But when it is used against an IPv victim or a spouse without their knowledge, that's a problem. So somehow we need to raise awareness, and that's one of the reasons for talking about this to all of you today. Already actually helped, like it was covered in a bunch of news articles. The good thing that happened, Google actually took action. So Google stopped showing ads on a bunch of these terms after our study. YouTube and Google Play kicked a bunch of apps and videos that talk about spying. So that's we believe a steps in the right direction. And some senator in the US is trying to bring up a law against this kind of covert spying, or hiding their spying capabilities behind this, like, oh, it's used for child or it's used for employer. They are basically trying to argue that if you're saying that you have spying capabilities, then you have to ensure that your tool is not being used against an adult without their knowledge. So, but overall, as I was saying, like, we need some form of detection tools. Anti-spywares are not helping right now, so we need some tools immediately to help the potential victims. So we came up with something. Like when we talk to different case managers or the different organizations who try to help domestic violence victims, they are completely unprepared with technology abuse or technology-mediated spying. And their best approach was something like, oh, if you see your phone is draining really fast or your phone is getting hot and you feel like you are being spied on, then you're probably being spied on. And the solution is to basically throw away the phone, get a new one. And definitely this is not a satisfactory answer. And as a computer scientist and computer security expert, this was very painful to know that there is no help available to some of the most vulnerable population in our society. So we went ahead and created something that's called like a tech clinic. It's something like a consultation, like you go to doctor and talk to doctor about your problem, and doctor try to help you, try to give you some consultations. They are similar to like lawyer or tax consultations. We create a tech clinic. It's similar to like a trained professional, which will help IPv survivors or IPv client who are basically worried that they are probably being spied on, or they need to get some kind of help from trained professionals. They can come to the clinic, talk to us, and then we can try to help them. I'm not going to the details too much about it. It's basically we created a full format of how do you do this, because a simple technical solution is not going to work. You need a socio-technical solution. So you need to come up with a way to discover what could have gone wrong. We have to be extremely cautious that we are not making things worse than where they are. So by that, I mean, we should not alert the abuser that their phone got checked or their phone got someone, they talked to a consultant about their situation. Because often if the abuser knows that the victim is seeking for help, they will get more violent and things might escalate. So we come up with something we call TAC. It's like a set of questionnaire that is easy to find out what could be the reason, what could be the technological violence that they are facing. We created a tool called ISD, IPv spyware discovery tool, and then a set of privacy checkup list. All of these things are online on websites. You can check it out. You can download all of them. And then we created like we're also trying to collaborate with Symantec and Kaspersky. So Kaspersky and Symantec both improved their spyware detection or dual use app detection mechanisms now. And I recommend you can use Norton or Kaspersky to detect if a phone has some kind of this dual use application that has capability of being a spyware or acting as a spyware. Yeah, we created a full tech clinic, means you need a full protocol for how to do it. And we had this you need to first understand the problem, then investigate and advise, and it has to fit in the existing model of what can help victims. So I can talk about the details of this later. And right now, this tech clinic is running in 2 places. And one is in New York City, another is in Madison. And overall, the professionals who work with clients, work with IPV victims, they are very happy that we have this clinic available. It was very hard to run it during COVID because running this clinic over the phone is much harder. And you have to remember one thing: not everyone that are as tech savvy as you are. It could be based on age. It could be based on the area of your expertise. It could be based on, and typically, normally, women believe they are less tech savvy than men. So there are studies around it, although it's not true, but they believe they're less tech savvy. And all those situations needs to be taken into account when you try to run these consultations. You have to ask same question multiple times in a different ways to ensure that you're getting the correct answer, because often what you mean might not actually get conveyed to the person. Now, question is, what's next coming forward? We found, as I told, after our study, Google took a bunch of actions and they blocked many queries. So that's a good thing. So right now, if you go to Google Play and search for track girlfriend location or track my boyfriend, you'll not get any answer. And this is a way of deterrence to potential abusers. Potential abusers has to do more work to find anything, and that's good, right? Because previously it was too easy for them to find these things, and that's why they're more prevalent to be used. Now, this kind of deterrence might help. But we just translate that same query in Google Translate. I did not change anything, just went to Google Translate, translate the query, and then search with the translated query. You get lots of answers. So that basically shows all those blocking or all the money they have spent are only in English, not for other languages. And I know that because I know a bunch of these apps that are spyware in the list, in the red boxes that you can see. And this is nothing about specific about Bengali. It happens in every other languages except English. So you just translate the query into other language and it works. So this basically made us think, are there apps in other languages, not English, that are not in English? And how easy or difficult it is to find apps in other languages? Well, it turns out to be pretty easy. We did a study about in 32 countries in 15 different languages, including Hindi, Bengali, Arabic, Thai, Vietnamese, the most spoken 15 languages in the world. And it turned out there are still hundreds of apps that we can find. Google has this, the query blocking. So what do you mean by IPS query is basically a query where you have explicit intent of spying on an intimate partner. Okay. And of course, Google blocks a bunch of queries in English, which is good, but it blocks nothing like girlfriend or phone track korun. It blocks nothing in Bengali, Hindi, Malay, Chinese, Thai, Vietnamese. It basically shows that it's the same problem that came up in Facebook multiple times as well, that they invest a lot of resources on monitoring English content, but not content in non-English languages. And there was this whole issue about Myanmar riots happening in India as well, based on through Facebook and WhatsApp, and they are struggling to deal with it. So that's another area that we have a lot of research on English, but not on other languages. So we welcome everyone to look into local languages and how can we improve monitoring or basically in this kind of study, like monitoring those apps that can probably coming up in Bengali or Hindi or your local language. Another interesting thing we found, spyware apps are normally more multilingual. So they are kind of published in more languages than normal apps. So normal apps are probably less than 2% of them are published in more than 7 languages on Google Play. But spyware apps are mostly in different languages. But it's very hard to find all the apps available in English. So if you search only in English, you will not find all the spyware apps available in Play Store. You have to search in other languages, non-English languages like Spanish, French, or Bengali, Hindi. And that was very surprising for us to see. So there are apps that can be used for spying on intimate partner, available in English, but cannot be found through English searches. It can only be found through, say, if you search using Malay or Indonesian. That's one part of that's an ongoing work that we are doing of understanding different kinds of spyware apps in different languages. Also, we found there's a huge disparity in the type of result or search results found as a victim when someone is trying to know if their phone is being tracked versus an abuser who is trying to find tools to abuse. And there are a lot more resources available to abusers than victims. Victim search will get you some kind of like relationship counseling or lawyers and all those things that are completely useless. But and sometimes actually spyware app blog post will come up when you search for how to find spy if you're being spied on, and they will argue that, oh, if you're being spied on, then you should spy your partner as well. So go ahead and spy your partner. So it's in some sense like the search engines are not helping, and instead they're hurting the victims. We're also looking into some of these like smart homes now because we increasingly are using lots of smart home devices in our houses, including thermostats, smart locks, lights, like presence sensors, cameras, and all those things. And now the violence or the spying happens not only in the digital world inside your phone. Now the whole house becomes a spying tool. So we are looking into this as well. I mean, there are lots of anecdotal evidence. We are trying to find out what properties of the devices make them easy to be used for spying. What kind of protocol we can build to detect those devices. What tools we can build to detect the device. So with that, towards the end, I'll just try to summarize briefly that it's a use of technology in intimate. We just looked at a very small part of the technology-mediated abuse to intimate partners. We just looked at the applications on Android or on iOS. There are plenty other ways that technology are being used, so spying and harassing or stalking intimate partners. So, like as I just talked, smart home devices, search engines, all this can collectively help or hurt survivors. It's up to us. How do we control the technology? How do we build new technologies that can be helpful or be used against IPV survivors or IPV victims? Now, just before we part, like the reason to talk to all of you is you are future policymakers, software designers, teachers, and you can help raise awareness about these things around your community, your house, your friends, your students, whoever you can impact. You can impact not only based on what laws are passed, how policies are designed. Like COVID-19 policies are often ignore the situation of domestic violence. And that has been shown multiple times in many countries. It's not only about India, it's throughout the world. This has happened that they just don't consider the situation of some domestic violence or intimate partner violence. So when you design policies, you should take into account when you design softwares, when you design websites, when you sell something, keep in mind that how your work can impact and affect others, especially some vulnerable population in our society. And of course, please do not indulge or condone any type of activities related to IPS and raise awareness. So, okay, with this, I will stop here and I'll open the floor for questions. Right.
Thank you, Rahul, for your insightful, enlightening lecture. Now the floor is open for questions. You may type in the in-call message box, or you can say directly to Dr. Rahul Chatterjee.
Yes.
If you have any question.
And thank you for listening on Friday evening. শুক্রবার সন্ধ্যাবেলা সবাই বসে এখানে
এটা খুব একটা মানে ভালো
লাগে। হ্যাঁ, স্পাই অ্যাপসটা কে ইনস্টল করেছে ওটা ট্র্যাকিং করা যাবে? হ্যাঁ, that's actually a very good question. It's very hard to find out who installed the spyware. In some cases, we could actually do some kind of reverse engineering to find out কার email address use করা হয়েছিল ওটা install করার সময়, because most of the spy apps, when they're installed, they had to be configured with some account details, right? And those account details could be helpful. But you know, those account details, email address could be anything. It's very hard to track whose email address it is, right? Like if a spy, like abuser can just create a fake email address just for installing. It's not that difficult to hide. And unfortunately, that's the only way to find out who installed. So this is another thing, you know, as a policymakers, you can, if some apps are necessary, like those anti-theft and anti-spyware apps or SMS syncing apps, but they should have an easy way to find out who installed it, where the data is being sent to. So, yeah. If
that will be IP address, I think.
IP address gets changed, like using, yeah. So these apps will work even if you change your IP address or VPN around these things. So this is another interesting this point that you brought on. VPN often are suggested, you know, in many websites you found they will suggest like use VPN so that people cannot track you. Well, no, VPN is not going to protect you against a domestic violence abuser. It can protect you from getting ads. It can protect you from getting surveilled by government. It's not going to protect against an abuser. So use of VPN or IP address is not going to be helpful in this particular context. And I find it many times that people have created like lots of this advice guide for domestic violence victims, and they will recommend, use VPN, which is not helpful.
Okay.
And that is why use of this IPV threat model, keep in mind what capabilities that someone has. And it's a very computer security lingo, but you can understand that someone has physical access to the device, they install an app. And once that basically means whatever you can do with your device, that person can also do with that device. And that's why, like, with the VPN, you can use the VPN to track whatever apps. Like, even if you use a VPN, does not prevent you from like locating your location through GPS or your SMS or calls. Therefore, the abuser can also do all of those things. Okay.
I have a question though.
Okay. Okay, Miral. Okay, you can proceed.
No, okay,
I have
just you
another
can
question.
proceed.
Okay. So thank you, sir, for the the nice talk. So I have a more generic question related to the last slide and the dominated service providers like Google and the governments. how they are directly or indirectly responsible to come out from this, the problem. Or what percentage are basically they are the stakeholders for this specific problem? Because what I believe, if Google is taking the data from the normal users, it is for the good purposes, but it is also responsibility of that so that they can prevent the data so that that will not be close to the any bad people, right? So the next one is about the government, that why they are not taking the actions rapidly. And third one is the users, that we cannot do right now, I think, because it takes lots of time. So whether is the challenge nowadays we are facing. It is totally depends on the socioeconomic structure or something else that we are not able to understand in our naked eyes. So if you can please enlighten us with that.
That's actually a very good point. I mean, all the stakeholders responsible in some extent. I would not say they are participating in it, but they are definitely turning a blind eye. মানে এই problem হচ্ছে এটাতে they are just not aware this is happening, or they are just aware and they don't care. Now, first Google or like these primary device manufacturers or OS manufacturers or mobile OS providers, just to be clarify one, the data that these spyware apps are collecting are not from Google. They are just an app inside Android. And then they are collecting their data directly from the device. Now you can say like why Android allows these things. And that's probably a valid discussion why Android allows such like covert surveillance capabilities. Sometimes they are useful, sometimes they can be abused. So Google has done something, especially in Android 11 or the Android 12. They have changed their permission model. They have changed their APIs so that it's hard to covertly surveil. So you have to show notification to collect data. You cannot collect video feed without showing there is a video icon. It's a different story whether users are noticing those things, but it's at least there. Previously, it wasn't there. Android 10 and before, it wasn't there. So Google is taking some steps, and they are getting aware. They basically, because we are aware, Google is taking steps. As a user, what we can do, we can be aware and force these people to change. Both device manufacturers and governments won't do anything unless we force them to do. Now, the second stakeholder is government. There are laws, albeit weak, but there are laws to protect. It's just police or the lawyers are not aware. They just don't understand technological details. They are, I mean, not to belittle anyone, but often they are way behind in terms of technology. They are probably 10 years or 20 years behind. In the US, we often make joke, the lawyers are 20 years behind the current state of the technology. So they are basically playing a catching game. So even if there are laws against this, like wiretapping laws or covert surveillance laws, they are not often used. I'm very happy to see actually there is a bunch of news recently, like those news in the Pune, or there's this high profile news, I think against Nawazuddin Siddiqui and Kangana Ranaut. I don't know whether there's any truth to it, but at least police is doing something to prevent covert surveillance. And the third is users. Yeah, users, we can make them aware through news media, social media. We can talk about it like this. You can talk to your friends and communities, and we can make them aware. And they are actually. There was this study that shows that like 5 years ago, Indians has no idea about privacy, or there's very few people who know about privacy or care about privacy, and many more actually care about privacy now. They are aware of this digital violence more now than before. It will take time, you are right, but we are in the right direction. We just have to keep doing the work as we make progress. Okay, I see Ibrahim has a question about mobile can be tracked from spy app. Yeah, I think that's a statement. How could AI help in protect victims of domestic violence? Well, AI itself, again, it's a tool, and you have to use a good use of. You have to put to a good use. So one thing in this case, AI helped finding out applications that are being advertised for spying. We can use AI to find out what our developers are selling or advertising their tools for spying on intimate partner. One interesting problem is, as I told, often these developers are getting really sneaky and they will not talk about spying on intimate partner on their descriptions, text descriptions, but they will have images where they talk. There are YouTube videos which the description will be completely benign, but in the video they will talk about spying. And I think, of course, AI can help in that sense, finding out, being a little bit more vigilant about these practices. Yeah, I think that's where the AI is useful. There are interesting work where AI is being used. So there is a work where people look at the search history to find out if someone is subject to IPV and then show targeted results about getting help. So that's an interesting study you can look at. It's from UK. They look at the search history and then try to predict how likely that this person is experiencing IPV. Because one of the big challenges in intimate partner violence or domestic violence is people don't realize, especially in India, it's very normalized, thanks to Bollywood in some cases. It's very normalized that, oh, it happens. Ye hota rehta hai. And these tools can help someone realize, no, what am I experiencing is not something normal. It's probably part of violence and I should seek help or report, something like that.
Okay, that means we have to spy on the mass to get the data. Treat the search.
No, it could be individual, right? Someone can basically go and opt in to a product that, okay, I want to find out if I'm being spied on. Of course, you're right. There has to be a balance. Someone is stealing the data, or someone is actually, whoever is creating the tool has to be honest about how they are using the data. Hopefully they're not stealing their browsing history. They're probably doing locally, and their security and crypto can help. But, okay. Ananya has a question. So can this spyware get installed if one has not clicked any link or anything else on the device? That's actually a good point. Mostly, no. So even if clicking the link is not going to install the spyware on the phone, fortunately, Android has some kind of preventions. So you have to go to either Play Store or have to download and go through this installation process. It's not like Windows where it can automatically install. So that's a good thing. And also, someone has to have a physical access to your device for most of the cases to install the spyware and configure them. So one-time physical access is necessary. And this thing comes up multiple times if someone says like, oh, it's divorced partners who are not living with husband and wife, and say the wife is not living with the husband. If the husband does not have physical access to the device, then they cannot install the spyware. However, there are few apps and few techniques through which they can still track. One is passwords or account compromise. If they know the Google Drive passwords or iCloud password, then they can track. And the second thing is there's a thing called social network monitoring, which basically tracks when you are coming online or offline into social networks, including Skype and WhatsApp and Facebook, Instagram, and so on. So they can still track your activity through the social networking. It's a very low level spying, in the sense less powerful spying, but it's still possible. So in those two cases, you do not need a physical access on actual device, right? Go ahead, Ananya.
স্যার মাঝে মাঝে যখন আমরা হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ বা ফেসবুকে যখন কারোর সাথে কথা বলি, বা পার্টিকুলার হয়তো কোনো একটা প্রোডাক্টের নিয়ে কথা বলছি, তো মাঝে মাঝে অ্যামাজন বা ইনস্টাগ্রামে তার রিলেটেড অ্যাড আসতে থাকে, তো সেটা কিভাবে প্রসেস হয়? এটাও কি কোনো স্পাইওয়্যার বা কিছুর আন্ডারে পড়ছে, না কিভাবে প্রসেস হচ্ছে পুরো জিনিসটা?
Okay, so ad is a very completely different beast, and adware is basically through tracking. So Facebook and Instagram and Google and all of them, they are selling your activities on the web. Activities on the web includes searching, clicking, looking, or any even scrolling. All of those are activities on the web, and they track you all the time. Like every time you're scrolling on Facebook, and if you stop for a couple of seconds extra on certain post, that gets recorded. Facebook will sell the ad to some other things. For Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, they're all are the same entity right now, so they don't need to sell, they just get their things. But you can see this is happening through multiple websites. So it's not through any spyware. It's just basic ad tracking, and it happens it's very hard to prevent them happening, except you just stop using those applications. But it's nothing to be worried. It's not a peer-to-peer spying. So remember in the beginning, I talked about this government surveillance. I'm not considering right now. I'm not considering any kind of spyware by companies or adware. So those are not in the scope of today's talk. And those are they do not normally involve certain spyware that is going to harm you from an intimate partner. They're still harmful, and we should talk about it. And we should know about those things, but not in the context of IPv.
Thank you.
Okay. The Chiranjit has types on a calm high, but finishing it on a beshi high. Phishing attack. Phishing attack is it's another problem. Phishing attack is used mostly for account compromise. Phishing attack, basically, for those who don't know, phishing attack means sending a targeted email to someone and pretending to be, hey, this is for update your Aadhaar information, or you owe some tax to the income tax department. Click on the link to pay the tax, or it could be your Google password is hacked. Go change it. Those emails are called phishing emails because often they do not go to the actual website, but they normally go to the attacker control websites, and they try to steal some information about you. Either sometimes your bank account information, or it could be some basic, where do you live? Or it could be like your username and passwords. And they do not normally involve any kind of spyware. Phishing is also not a primary tactics, I would say. We haven't seen a lot in the case of IPv. It happens in general public, true, but it's not specific for IPv. Although, again, so far all the research is very US-centric. And I invite all of you to actually look into in the Indian context if it's used more often for Indian context. So to answer your question, Chiranjit, phishing is a problem, but it's a problem to the general public, to everyone, not specific to the victims of IPv. Okay.
Okay. Any questions? More? If there are any questions?
Rahul, thank you very much.
Thank you.
বলছি আমার একটা সম্ভাবনা জিজ্ঞেস করছি, বলছি ভবিষ্যতে কি এরকম একটা অপশন আসতে পারে যে এআই বেসড কোনো সফটওয়্যার আসবে যে ইউজারের ফোনকে স্ক্যান করে বলবে যে এখানে কোন রকম কোনো ম্যালওয়্যার ইউজ হচ্ছে কি হচ্ছে না, এরকম ভবিষ্যতে সম্ভাবনা আছে কি?
It's not impossible. মানে এরকম হতে পারে, কেউ এরকম জিনিসের উপর কাজ করছে বলে আমি জানি না। And remember one thing, any technology that will help you find the system will also be useful to hide the system. So আমার মনে হয় না যে এমন কোনো one single AI or any kind of software we can build that will be a one solution for all the problems. It will continue to be a cat and mouse problem.
Okay, thank you very much. It is very nice to see you. খুব ভালো লাগছে, এটা ব্যক্তিগত স্তরে যে তোমাকে দেখছি এখান থেকে বসে পাড়া থেকে দেখছি। So we will again communicate you whenever we require. Okay, in our college. Okay. Thank you very much.
And if you have, if you have questions, if you have questions about grad schools in the US, if you want to learn more about it, please feel free to me. My address is here. And thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I think there is no more question today. And thank you, Rahul, for being so sporty and answering all those questions. And I think that not only the students, but also whoever present here wherever there is a faculty, research scholar, or student from various institutes are benefited from that. I hope so. And I hope we will approach you soon for more technical topics. I hope
Okay.
that I'll be happy.
All right. Okay.
Okay, thank
Chalo.
you. Then
Thank you, sir. Thank
you
you.
can conclude now. That this is the end of this webinar.
All right. Good night.
Okay. Good night. Good morning.
Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.